Oh, this is a very rough and rocky track. Hi there, my name is Terry. I'm on my e-bike and I'm going to take you on a little adventure. My ride partner for today is my Specialized Turbo Vado 4.0 from 2022. Although it's a 2022 model, in most important aspects, it's pretty much the same as the 2025 and 2026 models. Indeed, in many important aspects, this bike is very similar to the 2025-26 version of the Turbo Vado SL. SL I think stands for super light, although it's not a super light bike. But the core of the bike, the frame and the motor, is the same as this one. Well, I said the SL version is not light. Well, this one isn't light either. In fact, it's round about 27 kilos, plus a bit when you add on the accessories. But included in that 27 kilos are a set of front telescopic forks and a suspension seat post. I'll talk more about how effective they are during the ride and at the end of this video. It's also fitted with a full set of mudguards, lights and a rack. To support the weight of this bike and me, the bike is fitted with some fairly robust wheels that are shod with these 27-inch by 2.3-inch Specialized Pathfinder Sport tyres. These don't really have much tread on them, so I'm not expecting that these are going to be very useful off-road. Certainly not in muddy conditions, but I'll come back to that later. In reality, this is a commuter and touring bike, not a proper off-road or mountain bike. So I hope I'm not expecting too much of it on today's adventure. I'll summarise how well it worked on this ride at the end of this video. So during this mini adventure, I'm going to be riding on the road like I am now. I'm going to be doing some off-road. And here's the first section, complete with fly tipping. This is just a gravel section, but I do have quite a strong headwind. My Garmin's telling me it's 27 kilometers an hour, and it feels it. I'm expecting about a third to a half of this ride to be off-road. So what I've done is I've reduced the tyre pressures. The rear tyre pressure is 25 psi and the front is 20. I don't want to reduce them too much more, although that would be good for the off-road sections. But for the on-road bits, I find the bike becomes a bit squirmy. Hopefully the pressures I've got in there are a good compromise. Just going over the motorway. Oh, this track seems to have got a bit bumpier since I last rode it, but at least it's quite dry. I have my e-bike set on eco mode, so I'm probably doing most of the work, and the e-bike would be doing a little bit, particularly on the uphill sections. Not that there will be a lot of hills during this adventure. Having said that, there's a little downhill section here. We're down to a single track, and it is a bit smoother, which is great. Back onto the gravel track. I'm in the village of Triplo now, and I'm back onto the next road section. I'll turn this off for now. I could go up this track behind me. That's another off-road section, but it'll add about 2 kilometers to my overall journey. And as I'm running a bit late, I think I'll carry along the road for now. If you want to see me riding along this track, there's a video in the top right-hand side of the screen. This is where that track I just mentioned comes out. Anyway, onward along the road. So I won't actually record all of that. In fact, I probably won't record any of it. And I'll talk to you again when I get to the next off-road section. So I've come down this little lane. This should lead to a bridleway, which will be the next off-road section. However, it's time I told you about our little adventure today. So it's time for Terry to tell a tall tale. Well, actually, it's not a tall tale, it's a true story. But who cares in these days of misinformation? What I'm going to do today is see if I can find the source of the River Cam. And of course, as it's a tale, there's a twist in it. But first, the River Cam is that big river that you often see when you look at pictures of Cambridge, with people punting up and down it. There's a bit of a farmyard and a bumpy piece of ground. Here's the bridleway. Now this is quite bumpy, so I'm going to put the camera on my chest because I suspect the footage on this 360 camera is just jumping around all over the place. Hopefully this is a bit more stable. So yeah, the River Cam runs through Cambridge. However, if you follow it upstream, you'll find the Cam is created by the confluence of two rivers, one of which could be the Ree and one of which could be the Granter. It's normal to rename the larger of those rivers the main river name, so one of them really should be the Cam. However, both of these rivers are roughly the same size, they're about the same length, so there have been discussions, let's say, for millennia about which of those two rivers is really the Cam. So if you look on an Ordnance Survey map and follow the rivers upstream of that confluence point, you'll find that one of those rivers is called the Cam or the Ree, and the other is called the Cam or the Granter. Despite it being millennia, we as a country, or a county, or whatever, still can't decide which of those rivers is actually the Cam. Indeed, if either of them are the Cam. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to follow the river that's called the Granter or the Cam up to its source. This is quite nice. My Specialized Turbo Vado is actually quite well suited to this off-road. That's because it's not too bumpy. After all, the bike that I'm on is not really a mountain bike. It's a commuter bike, but it does have suspension forks. Oh, this is pretty. Oh, if not a little bumpy. Can't see the bumps because of all the leaves. Oh yes, that's very, very nice. I think I come to a road and then I cross straight over. No, I don't. I come to a road, turn left, and then there should be another turning to the right, which will take me off-road again. I think just for a short section. Here it is. It's a public bridleway, so I can legitimately ride my bike along here. Oh, it's lovely and green, and these leaves scattered on the ground make it look so pretty. I'm still keeping the bike on eco mode. Again, another pretty little bit that runs through this line of trees. There's a lot of debris on the ground though, sticks. I should have had my 360 camera on, and I could, showed you the wider picture of what I'm riding through. Well, mind my head on this branch. Now I'm coming out onto a road. Right, I'm going to turn the camera off now because, well, we're just back on road. Despite this bike having suspension forks and supposedly a suspension seat post, I do feel quite a lot of the jolts. This bike is not really as comfortable as I would expect it to be, given its specification. I think the bit that really does help is putting this lower pressure in the tyres. It absorbs some of the higher frequency vibrations, whereas the forks don't seem to absorb any of the higher frequency vibrations, and not many of the lower frequency ones either. Okay, few puddles. I'll try and work my way around those. I don't want to get my bike dirty after all, do I? I did talk about the residual symptoms from my stroke. One of those symptoms is exacerbated by off-road riding like this. Basically me getting shaken around. My brain has difficulty in coping with that, and therefore I have to slow down. Back over the motorway again. Straight on. This is a new track for me. I haven't been down here before. I didn't even know it was here, and it's good to know. Part of the trouble is it is slightly downhill, and because of that I'm going a bit faster and I get shaken around more, and that's where my brain problems come in. So I have to slow down in order to be able to cope with the shaking. Oh, off to the right here. Nice little bit of uphill along grass, which is good. Still quite bumpy though. But at least I'm going slower because I'm going uphill. That'll give me time to recover a little bit. So I'm 23 kilometers into the ride, and I think the source of the cam, or the granter, whatever it is at about 33 kilometers. So I've got about 10 kilometers to go. I probably need to preserve my camera battery now, so I'll turn it off and I'll see you again later. Time to go off-road again. Turn right here, up this concrete road. I have to go round this fence. It is a bridleway. It might not look it on camera, but this is actually quite steep. So I've just turned my bike up to sport mode. Changed down gear to get the cadence up. That's better. Yeah, we're grade of 11%, 12%. Up near the top now. This is technically can't say the word. This is technically off-road, even though it's actually a concrete track. Don't worry, in a minute we will lose the concrete and get onto a proper track. There we are, there's the proper track. Better be careful around here because you often get walkers. Although there don't seem to be any today. Hello. Right, shall I move over? There we are. That's all right. I'm on another little gravel track now. In theory, this is a dead end, but it turns into a bridleway, so I can carry on right the way through. It's sort of half gravel, half road, makes it quite bumpy. I dare say the camera's being shaken around quite a lot. I certainly am. Now we're onto a proper gravel track. It's quite loose. I'll keep it on eco mode so that I don't get too much motor power. Hopefully I won't spin the rear wheel. Quite a rut in the centre. Still quite bumpy, but it is. uphill, and it's getting quite steep. It's probably about 10%. Now this is the most challenging part. These off cambers don't help. Very loose ground too. Oh, I think I might go up to sport mode. Give me a little extra help. 7%. 7% is not too bad on road, but off road it's a bit more challenging. Okay, better preserve a bit of battery, so stop recording. I'm on an open gravel track now, but as you can see by the sky behind me, the weather is looking quite menacing. I hope it doesn't rain. I'm now 30 kilometers into the ride. According to my Garmin, I've got just under 3 kilometers to go until I get to the source of the river. Back out on the road, a lovely little lane, although I don't think it's going to last long until I'm off-road again. According to my Garmin, I've got another climb. Not very steep, only 3% and about 1 kilometer long. Gives me an ascent of about 32 meters. There we are. I've just started the climb, although it seems pretty flat to me. Yep, this is definitely off-road. Not only is it off-road, but it's very pretty off-road. I do love it when we go between trees and bushes like this. Yeah, I'm still on that climb. As I said, it's not very steep, only a few percent, although that bit's a bit steeper. Yeah, only 3%, but off-road it feels much harder. I suppose I could take it out of eco mode and go into sport. Oh, that helps a lot. Maybe a bit too much. Oh, this is a very rough and rocky track. This is shaking my head around a bit too much. I'm going to have to slow down. Slow down, he says. I'm only doing about 10 kilometers an hour anyway. Oh yes. So my Turbo Vado starts to struggle a bit more in those sorts of situations where there are lots of bumps. It's quite good for the smoother gravel tracks, but really the suspension's not doing very much. However, I can feel the tyres deforming over some of the bumps. Ideally, I'll let the pressures down even more. Probably 15 psi in the rear and 10 in the front. But I'm not going to do that just yet. As I said, this might be a bumpy track, but it's a very pretty track. It's starting to get to my head now. But having said that, I'm not very far away. Oh dear, this looks bad. The camera is probably being shaken around like bilio. Be interesting to see what the footage is like, just how good the stabilization is. because I'm bouncing around like a bouncy thing. Oh, no wonder I'm having trouble. I seem to have gone off course. So I should be over there. Now all I have to do is find where the source of the cam is. Oh, information. I think I should be over there. And I've deviated away. Yeah, so I've missed it. I'm going to turn around, go back and see if I can find it, because I'm not coming all this way just to ride past it. That means I've got all these bumps again. Whoa. I never thought finding the source of the river cam would be quite so difficult. I seem to have ridden past it again. According to my map, I've got to go along there, and there's no track. However, the source of the cam is about about 60 meters that way. I'm just going to park up, use my stand. There's a ditch down here, and that is the river cam, or it might be the Granter. However, at the moment it doesn't have any water in, so it's not really a river at all, not even a stream, not even a trickle. So it looks as though I can't get to the actual source unless I scrabble across all this brush and through that field. Anyway, that's the end of the adventure for you today, because we've reached the source of the river cam, or maybe the Granter. But for me, I've got another 40 kilometers to get home. So I'll carry on, but I'm not going to record that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this new format. If you did, then give me a thumbs up and like and all that sort of stuff. If you really liked it, you'll find a buy me a coffee link in the description. But in the future, I'm going to go on some more e-bike adventures, and you never know, the next one might be to the other source of the cam, or is it the Re? I've almost finished my ride. I'm just a couple of kilometers from home, and the sun is just setting. And there is the sun setting over my visit to the source of the river cam. Or was it the Granter? If you know better, let me know in the comments. As it's starting to get dark, I'm really quite glad that my bike is fitted with these lights, front and rear. I must admit, I did enjoy that ride. It was something a bit different for me, particularly some of the off-road sections that I hadn't ridden before. Talking about off-road sections, how did the bike do? Although the terrain wasn't too challenging, the bike coped fairly well with it. However, there are a couple of caveats. First of all, the suspension on this bike is not up to modern day mountain bike standards, and I felt that it struggled in a number of the sections, even though those sections weren't particularly challenging. Also, it was relatively dry out today, so there wasn't much mud. So those tyres that are on there coped reasonably well. However, if it had been a lot more muddy, I think it would have been a completely different situation. Those tyres would have been a problem. Okay, it's future me here. I'm recording this a couple of weeks after that ride to the source of the river cam, and I've been using the bike in more varied conditions. In particular, as you can see here, wet and muddy conditions. I can confirm that although those Specialized Pathfinder Sport tyres are not too bad in the dry, in the wet and mud they are terrible. I've been sliding all over the place, so much so that I think I will replace these tyres with something a bit more aggressive for the winter. If you've got any recommendations about what I should change them to, then tell me what your recommendation is in the comment section below this video. Overall though, I enjoyed going out on this bike along that mixed terrain, and it coped quite well. However, It does make me hanker after a full suspension mountain bike, particularly having that better suspension to cope with the off-road sections. My ride today on my Specialized Turbo Vado will feed into my full review of this bike, which will be coming to the channel in the future. It's future me again. The fact that the source of the river had no water in it has sent me into a state of discombobulation. I feel as though I ought to go back and find out where the river really starts. Oh well, perhaps that's another adventure.